Alright, welcome to eAcademy. My name is Mr. Carlson. We're going to look at a geometry lesson today where what we want to do is we want to be able to identify linear pairs first of all, and then we want to be able to use angle relationships in regards to those linear pairs to set up equations and solve. This is your Power Standard Skills numbers 5 and 8. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, let's start by looking at linear pairs of angles and define what they are. I have a picture down here of a linear pair, and our definition of a linear pair is just two angles that are adjacent to each other and are supplementary. So when we talk about, first of all, the term adjacent, that means that they're going to share a side or a leg. So if I look at this picture right here, KM is the shared side of these two angles. Okay. The second piece of it, the fact that they are supplementary, which means that they add up to 180 degrees. So if I take this angle here and this angle here, together they're going to equal 180 degrees. We can also take a look at their outside sides. Those outside sides will always form a line, and that's where the linear part of linear pair comes from. Now it doesn't matter if I move my point here M, if I move that around, no matter where I put it, okay, if I take the two angles that I get, if I add them up, they will always equal 180 degrees because these outside sides form a line. Alright, let's take a look at a problem involving linear pairs. Below here you'll notice that we have a picture. I have two parallel lines and a transversal running through it, and we've had a number of different problems involving that in the past. So what we want to do is we want to first of all be able to identify a linear pair, and then once I've identified two angles as forming a linear pair, we want to use the information we're given about those angles to write an equation and solve. So if we look at this picture down here, there's a lot of angles in this picture, but I have two of them labeled angles 1 and angles 2, and you'll notice that those two angles are right next to each other. They share a side, and their outside also forms a line. So angles 1 and 2 would be considered a linear pair. So using the information we know about angle 1 and angle 2, see if you can pause the video at this time and write an equation involving those two expressions, and then once you turn on the video again and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Alright, I hope the equation that you wrote down is the same as the one that I have. Notice how in this situation I didn't set the two expressions equal to each other because that's not the relationship between those two angles. The relationship that we know from the linear pair theorem is that if they form a linear pair, then they have to be supplementary, or they have to add up to 180 degrees. So what I did is I took the value of each of the two different angles there, and once I have those two expressions, I can add those together to get my total, which should be equal to 180 degrees. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that, and my goal is to solve for x. Once I do that, I can plug x in to find the value of the missing angles. In this case, we want to find the measure of angle 2. So let's go ahead and use some algebra here to solve this. So 3x plus 2x would be 5x. 15 plus 20 is 35. Equals 180. Then I'm going to go ahead and subtract 35 from both sides. If I do that, I have 5x equals 145, and then I can divide by 5 on both sides to get my value of x. If I do that, x then would be equal to 29. Okay, now once again, remember that's not the value that we're looking for. We want to find out what the measure of angle 2 is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my x value and I'm going to plug it in for x here for the measure of angle 2. So I'm going to say the measure of angle 2 is equal to 2 times 29 plus 20. And 2 times 29 would be 58 plus 20. Which gives me 78. Therefore, the measure of angle 2 would be equal to 78 degrees. and we've solved for angle 2 just like we talked about. Okay, thanks very much.